Hi everyone, we're the team from LLM and we wanted to bring you this webinar on fly parasites. It's something we've been using for a number of years now with pretty good success on farms. So we just wanted to give you a little bit more information. Our clinical lead in the team is Tom Jackson, who will be doing the presentation. And we've also got Jenny McGaggle on the line who does our orders in the practice. So I will hand over to Tom to start the presentation.
So this is just a quick presentation on how we use the friendly flies and how they work. So we see it as a sustainable approach to fly control as an alternative to more traditional methods. So firstly, what we're trying to control are your common farm flies, that nuisance and biting. So you've got your face flies, horn flies, stable and head flies. Between them, they'll cause a lot of the issues on farm. They'll be the most commonly seen. So obviously you'll see them on animals' backs and in the parlour and around muck heaps and calf pens and all the sort of normal places that you'd expect to see an issue with flies. Obviously the big issue with them is that they can cause a lot of disease, mainly by transmitting bacteria. For instance, you've got New Forest eye, which is caused by Moraxella bovis, and that's transmitted by face flies. So obviously that's an extremely painful condition, can cause serious problems, and potentially they can lose the eyes as well. So it's a big welfare issue. And if there's a big fly population on your farm, that can quickly spread for a group. Another one is mastitis, in particular summer mastitis, which again, the bacteria are spread by flies. An AHD estimate that a single case of summer mastitis can cost almost £300 on average. So obviously there's a big economical impact as well as the welfare impact of the pain and all of that. There's also behavioural issues where cattle will graze less and spend less time eating and therefore reduce yields if they're being bothered by flies a lot. They're constantly moving their heads and swishing their tails to get rid of the flies, but that's time they're not eating. One study in the US found that a stable fly infestation could reduce yield by 139 kilos per animal per year. So obviously that's quite a big economical impact for you. So the traditional approach to fly control is quite reactive. So that's, using chemicals, pyrethrins and pyrethroids, all your pour-ons and sprays when there's a problem, and you're kind of behind the curve a bit then because the population's already got to an extent where you're just fighting them all the time rather than any sort of proactive thing to prevent them. We also have there's evidence of resistance build up with these chemicals, so they get less effective over time. And they're also not that pleasant chemicals, so if we can reduce the use of them, it's better for everybody in the parlour if they're not spraying chemicals around. So what we use these fly parasites for is to be more proactive and to try and reduce the fly population before they become a problem. So we use two species of tiny parasitic wasp, which are Musculiferax raptor and Spolangia cameroni. So they're both native species, but they just don't breed in large numbers in the UK. So they're bred in Texas, the ones that we use, and shipped over to us, and they're fully DEFRA approved, and they're specific as well. They won't go off and parasitize any beneficial insects. They won't target honeybees or anything like that. They will only target the nuisance flies. So the basic life cycle we have is that our wasps will deposit their eggs in a fly pupae, and they'll then eat the larvae and develop and hatch themselves, and then go on to infect and parasitize more pupae. So really you're stopping the fly population at source rather than trying to kill adult flies as you would with sprays and pour-ons. So in terms of benefits, there's fewer flies to irritate workers and livestock. You can reduce your chemical usage because you're reducing the overall population. less fly-borne disease, as mentioned, as summer mastitis and New Forest disease, just being a couple of examples. They're cost-effective. Sort of the investment in fly parasites is balanced out by reduced chemical usage and welfare and medicine savings. They're sustainable. There's no reported antibiotic or acquired resistance to them. Obviously, they're very useful for organic farms where they're trying to minimise chemical and medicine usage. So the picture on the right is how they will come to you. They come in bags, which are pre-parasitized fly pupae, just with some rice husks for padding to stop them being damaged in transit. So those pupae will then develop, and the wasps will hatch and go on to infect more fly pupae. So just a couple of case studies from some of our clients. First one was a 300 cow all year round calving herd on a supermarket contract. They've been using them for a few years, and they're now using 8 times less of the pyrethrin spray and 5 times less permethrin pour-on. They now only use that on heifers that are away from home, and their cost of the flies is equivalent to that they were spending on chemicals before. So they've now seen a massive improvement in terms of cases of summer mastitis reduced and just welfare for people and cows in the parlour. The second one was an organic 160 cow herd, again all year round calving. They've been using them for 3 years, and his big point is that it benefits his welfare as well as the cows. Less time putting units back on, fewer broken units in the parlour, and just the cows are a lot less stressed, they're a lot happier when they're being milked. And then the third case study we've got was an 80 cow robot herd. So they use our vet techs to distribute them, which we try and encourage as many of our clients to as possible. So the vet techs will just turn up, distribute the parasites and leave again, and the farmer never really has to worry about them. So he uses them for reducing the amount of stress and complaints from the neighbours. He still uses a bit of pour-on, but no spray, and he's had no summer mastitis or New Forest for a good while now. So they're pretty happy. That's about it for the presentation. So if anybody's got any questions, I'll attempt to answer them.
Thanks, Tom. We've got a few more common questions that we get asked about fly parasites. So how would you recommend distributing them on farm? And yeah, where's best and what places to look for?
Yeah, so the important thing is to distribute them as close as you can to where the nuisance flies themselves are breeding. So that'll be areas of muck. Muck heaps are the big one, and then build-ups in corners of sheds and under water troughs and along the sort of front of calf pens and things like that. So although the fly parasites will travel and they will actively seek out fly pupae, the closer you can get them to those areas, the more effective they are. And the big thing as well is to avoid putting them anywhere where they could be damaged or where they're going to be moved. So you want to pick areas that aren't going to be mucked out for a couple of weeks, or a slurry lagoon that's not going to be disturbed, and put them there. Again, if you're using them in sheds, use them around the edges and in the corners where they won't be trodden on by the cattle. So yeah, as long as they're safe and near muck, they should be pretty successful. Would
you recommend, obviously they can't travel, they can only travel within a certain distance, so I'm assuming are they good or bad for intensive systems versus extensive? Or
they're better for intensive systems where there's a higher density of muck and of animals, and therefore more flies around. So they're better on housed herds, definitely, in areas where you do have a big build-up of flies, around the parlours and dry cow or calf accommodation.
How many, do we have a figure on, say, how many per head for cattle. We do them in large and small bags.
Yeah, so the rough rule of thumb is that for 100 head of cattle, you'll need one large bag per fortnight. But with our clients, we tailor that to how big a fly problem they've got and the sort of general cleanliness and hygiene of the farm. So we'll sometimes start with maybe a bag and a half per 100 head to get on top of the fly population, then reduce it in later years. It's important that people see it as a long-term investment. They won't see an instant fix with it, but if they stick with it for a couple of years, over time you'll gradually reduce the fly population so that it's well controlled. And at that point, often you can reduce the number of bags of flies that you're using once you get to a maintenance point.
So say you had a client interested in taking the flies on, how would you, I don't know, start the conversation or try and assess how, say, it was quite remote, would you ask for pictures or?
Yeah, pictures and videos are really good for assessing what the sort of situation is like on farm and where the good places to distribute them might be. I mean, if you can visit the farm and have a walk around with the client, that's really helpful. And, you know, you can look at areas together and discuss where you think they'll be best and where the biggest problem is. So that makes it a lot easier, definitely. Kind of with the vet techs, we see it as we're not just selling a product, it's a service as well. And we'll try and look at the whole farm, not just the fly parasites. You know, the vet techs will go out and they say, well, can you scrape out under that water trough or move that muck heap? So you're helping to reduce the overall issue as well as just using the fly parasites. So it's kind of a holistic approach in that sense.
We currently, we're mainly using them with our dairy clients, but can they be used on equine, pig, poultry, smallholder?
Yeah, they can be. Certainly in the US, they use them a lot on intensive pig and poultry units, and they work very effectively there. If you do have any sort of pig, poultry or equine units that are interested, it's best to get some pictures and videos and get in touch with us, and then we can give you some more specific advice.
And then with the ordering of them, what's the sort of, Jenny, what's the sort of lead time? So say a client wants to come on board or a vet practice wants to come on board, how much notice would we need before the first order can get to them?
We tend to keep a lot of extras in stock, especially kind of in the beginning half of the season. So just to enable us to get things out to you straight away. So all we really need is a couple of days' notice to get it out to you. So it's very rarely a problem that we won't have any flies that we can send out as soon as you're wanting them.
When do we send them out from? I know at the moment we've started here, but when is our natural cut off?
For the end date of it?
Yes.
Yeah, so we would go on till getting into the end of October. We want to send them out as long as the ground's not frozen because they still will hatch. They'll still burrow down. They'll be there in spring to get rid of those first flies, the fly eggs that are there.
Yeah, it's quite important to carry on right to the end of the fly season. So as Jenny says, any fly parasites left over can hibernate and then get straight on the problem again in the spring. You don't want to stop too early and have a big build-up of flies at the back end that will then come back to haunt you in the spring.
I'm not sure I can think of any more frequently asked questions, unless you two have anything that people ask a lot to add.
I think the big thing is if you've got questions or you're interested, just give us a call and we can chat through it and try and